Hello everyone, I'm Allie here from Dutch Touch Greenhouse in Thressa, Wisconsin. We're going to be talking about starting seeds in our little seed starter tray. So if you're here because you bought one of our kits, thank you so much. You should have everything you need in your kit to get your seeds going. So in your kit, first thing you want to do is take off your tray, and inside you're going to have your little bag with your hot care sheet. And then you're also going to have your seeds in there. And then we also have these sticks that we're going to use to label what we plant. So that should all be in your bag. You should have an assortment of flower seeds and then also different veggie seeds. And they're all going to be written on there what veggies they are. So make sure you take that out right away. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about seeds and what's happening with your seeds. And then we'll talk about how to plant and how to take care of them. So you have some veggie plants and some flower plants then that you can take care of. So once you take that out, you can put your tray back into the top, because we're not going to put the top on right now. We're going to use it to catch any water when we water the soil before we plant. So when you take a look at your seeds, the first thing you're going to see is that your seeds are going to be all different shapes and sizes. They're all going to look different. But they all have the same thing inside. Some of your seeds are going to be really, really little, and some are going to be bigger. So this is a sweet pepper seed. So they're smaller. So if you see your pepper seeds, they're going to be small. But all seeds have the same things inside. They're going to have a hard shell or a protective coating on the outside. And then there's going to be a little tiny plant. I know it's crazy to think, especially in a little seed like this, there's going to be a little tiny plant, and that's called the embryo. And then there's going to be some food in there so that that little embryo has some food to start out with. So all of those are, no matter how big or small the seed is, it all is inside of there. And that's what it's going to need to start out. So your seeds are going to go inside of your soil, and that's where we're going to plant them. So I'm going to stick my seeds here for now. So all of our seeds need three things. They're going to need sun, they're going to need water, and they're going to need the soil to grow in. And that's what you're going to give them. So you already have your soil, and if you look in your soil, there's going to be, you're going to see these little white things. They're called perlite. And the reason they're in there is because they're going to make sure that the water gets drained out of the soil. Because if you didn't have that, the soil would kind of turn into mud. And there wouldn't be enough airflow and there wouldn't be enough water flow for your seeds. Because we want to make sure that our seeds are moist when they're growing, but not really, really wet. Because if they get too wet, they're not going to grow that well. So what we're going to do to start out is we're going to take, and I recommend taking something, now we have this handy dandy mister at the end of our hose, but even if you have a spray bottle, you can use a spray bottle, and you're going to mist your tray. Obviously yours won't be this messy because you're going to use a spray bottle, but we just mist it. And the reason that I kept the tray underneath is because if you are in the house, then that's going to catch the water in there, so it won't make so much of a mess. So we mist the soil because we want the soil to be wet when we're planting. And again, that's one thing that our plants need is water. So then we're going to take our little pinky fingers, and we're just going to make holes in all of our little compartments, and that's where we're going to put our seed. So you can make holes. And then you're going to take your little seeds, and you can go in any order that you want. If you want to keep all of your veggies together and all of your flowers together, but you're going to take your seed and you're going to put it inside that hole, and then you're just going to lightly cover it up. Now we would recommend putting more than one seed in each hole because not every seed always germinates or makes a little plant. So it's always better to put more than one in each hole. Then what you want to do right away too is take your little stick, because once you're planting a lot, you're going to forget what was in which little compartment. So you're going to take your little stick and put it in there so that you know that that was your pepper seeds. Now the amazing thing is that these little seeds could sit in this bag for weeks, months, years, and nothing would happen. But as soon as you put it in the soil and you give it water, the seed automatically knows that it's where it needs to be to grow. So what's going to happen is if you give it what it needs, if you give it that soil, you give it water, you give it sun, the little coating, the protective coating on the outside is going to break. And the first thing that's going to come out of your seeds, what do you think it's going to be? The roots. The roots. It's going to be like a little foot that kind of kicks out, and it's going to go first. And the roots know, it doesn't matter which way you put the seed, the roots know to go down, and they automatically know that. So your roots are going to go down. That's the first thing. And the roots are so important because right now your seed has food in there for that little tiny baby plants in there. But once it starts to grow, it's going to need more food. And the roots are what they're going to take up the nutrients in the water that plant needs. So they're the very first thing. And as your flower or your vegetable grows, they're going to get really tall. But they don't blow away in the wind and they don't fall over because they have their roots. Their roots are going to keep them in the soil so that they don't fall over. It's kind of like a house needs a foundation. This is like a foundation of a plant. So once the roots come out, then that baby plant is going to sprout out, and that's going to go up, and it knows to go up. And that is what you're going to see coming out of the soil. So we're going to take all of our plants. Again, you have your flower plants too, or your flower seeds. And you're going to make holes in all of these compartments, and then you're going to put your seeds in there, and then make sure you label them. And we always put the date too. That just kind of helps us know because all of your seeds are going to start to sprout at different times. So it kind of helps you to know when they were planted and reminds you of how many weeks. Now you do have to have some patience when you're planting these seeds because they're not going to sprout up right away, but some go faster than others. But once you have them all in there, then you're going to want to mist them every day. Remember, you want to keep them moist. And what you're going to do is you're going to put this little top. It's almost going to be like a little mini greenhouse. And we're going to have to push these all the way down. And they may be a little bit too tall in there. So if they're too tall, I'd recommend just cutting the bottoms off so that they can fit with the cover. So just make them a little bit shorter, and then you can put your cover on, and that kind of makes it like a little greenhouse like what we're in, because if you look here, we have the plastic over the greenhouse, which keeps it nice and warm in here, but the sun can still shine through. So that's why this cover has to be clear, because it's going to keep your seeds nice and warm, and that's the way they like it to be. They don't want to be cold, so it'll keep them nice and warm, but the sun can still get through. So once you have them all planted and you covered each one up, then you're going to keep the top on. But before you do that, when you have everything planted, go ahead and mist it again. So you're just going to lightly cover up the seeds with some soil. Once they're all done, you have them all marked, then just take your mister and give them a good misting before you put the cover on. Then you're going to put this cover on. And then we're not going to put them in the basement. We're not going to put them in a cabinet. We're going to put them in the sunniest spot of our house. Whichever window gets the most sun. But be careful too that you don't put them too close to the window so that they're not getting too cold. But they're just going to want as much sunshine as you can give them. So if you look at your care sheet that everybody got in their bags, the first thing on there is the sun. So they're going to need that sun to keep growing. 6 to 8 hours is best. Now we know not every day is a sunny day, but you want them to be in the location that when it is sunny, they can get that nice sunshine, because that's what they're going to use to make food. Once you see that sprout, they're going to use photosynthesis to make their own food. So they really need that sun. Your seeds will grow better if it isn't too cold. So make sure you keep them nice and warm. Then make sure your seeds get plenty of water, but not too much. So again, you want to mist them and keep them moist, but you don't want it dripping out the bottom that they're that wet. That's too much water for a little seed and a little seedling. So you're going to start out misting until the seedling gets its first true leaf. And I'm going to show you what that means. Once it gets its first true leaf, then water with a gentle watering can, and then the cover can stay off. So we have a little area that we put all of our seed trays, and we put plastic and we put a little heater, and it's nice and warm, even warmer than the greenhouse is. And it's kind of its own little greenhouse inside of a greenhouse, and that's what you're making here. And you can even see, now that I put this cover on and there's water in there, you're going to see the condensation in there, and it's going to feel a lot warmer in there than it does even in your house when you put it in there. And that's what you want to see, because that's what happens on our plastic in the greenhouse too. So once you start seeing little sprouts of flowers, they're going to get their first leaves. Now these are not true leaves. These are all different tomatoes. And if you've ever seen a tomato plant, these leaves don't look like what tomato plant leaves look like. So we don't call these the true leaves. These are the seedling leaves. So they still need to be misted. They still need their cover on because they're not quite big enough to be a true plant yet. But if you look really closely, there's other leaves that have a different shape that are coming out. Those are the first true leaves. And if you look, those look more like a tomato leaf would look on a tomato plant. And that's what you're looking for. So once those really come out and you see their true leaf, then you can take the cover off and then you can start watering with a water can. You don't have to mist them anymore. Now, they also can be transplanted outside, but they have to be bigger. They have to have like their third or fourth true leaf, and it has to be warmer outside. Now that can be hard in Wisconsin because you never know when it's going to stay warm. But you want to make sure that there's no more frost in the forecast, okay? And there's no more freezing in the forecast before you put them out there. The only one that is different for that is carrots. So if you got carrot seeds, everyone got a different mix of veggie seeds. If you got carrot seeds, you can make the choice to plant those directly outside if you have a garden. Most of the time, carrot seeds are not started inside where most other seeds are. They're put directly into the garden 2 to 3 weeks before the last frost, because carrots are a vegetable that grow down. So they don't grow up like a tomato plant and then have their fruit, the tomatoes, off of the plant. Carrots grow under the ground. So it's hard to grow them in a little compartment like that. So those seeds usually go right into the garden. But you're more than welcome to try them in your little seed packs first and then transplant them into something bigger or a garden later. So that's completely up to you. The other nice thing is, now ours here, these are going to come out of our little greenhouse inside of a greenhouse, and they're going to be transplanted into bigger pots. Once they get their seedling leaves and start their true leaves, we have to transplant them. Because if you look, their little soil packs are a lot smaller than the ones that you're using. So they have to get transplanted a lot quicker. Yours are a little bit bigger, so you can keep yours in these packs until they're ready to go outside. They'll be just fine in these packs until they're ready to go outside. And another rule of thumb too, especially if you start seeing roots coming out the bottom, then they are definitely ready to get transplanted into the garden or any flower container that you want to put them in when you want them to go outside. Once they are bigger and they have like 4 to 5 true leaves, then we like to do something called fertilizing. So fertilizing is just giving them some extra food. We know plants and flowers can make their own food from photosynthesis, but fertilizer gives them extra food, and they love to have extra food. All of our flowers that you see growing right now, these hanging baskets with these beautiful flowers, they get fertilized every single time that they get watered. And it's just giving them extra food to grow even bigger and grow more flowers. So that's something you want to do too when they start getting bigger, is to give them some fertilizer. The last thing, when you are going to transplant them outside, the smart thing to do is kind of get them used to it, because they've been in this nice warm greenhouse and they've gotten everything that they need, and they're not used to the cold air, they're not used to the wind, they're not used to being outside. So what is nice to do is to take them out for about a week, put them in the shade just for a little bit, because they're not used to that intense sun that's being filtered through the window for them. So bring them outside in the shade just for a little bit each day, just to kind of gradually get them used to the outside before you transplant them into the garden or into a flower pot that you want to put them in. So that is everything you need for planting your seed tray, for taking care of your seed tray. Now after you plant, you may have some extra seeds. So I'm just going to throw this out there for any scientists that we have out there. So if we have any scientists, raise your hand right now. Who's a scientist? If you want to do a science experiment with your extra seeds, we would love to hear about it. So this is what we're going to do. I have these little pots, and I'm going to tell you what the science experiment is. If you decide to do the science experiment, we would love to see a picture of it. So post it in the comments, or have your mom or dad email it to us, or message it to us. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pick one lucky scientist, and all you have to do is show us that you set up the experiment. We're going to choose one of you lucky scientists to win a $20 gift card to the greenhouse, so that you can buy even more veggies or plants for your garden or for your flower pots, okay? So all you have to do is set up this really fun experiment that I'm going to tell you about. So what you need is 4 containers, and it doesn't have to be actual plant pots. You could use little yogurt containers, you could use little plastic cups. Just make sure they're not see-through, because that might mess up our experiment. Then what you're going to want to do is take your extra, most likely you'll have extra flower seeds, but you have to use the same seed in each of your containers to make the experiment really work. The other thing you should have is a journal. Every scientist should have a scientific journal. So you need your journal, and you're going to write out what you're doing for your experiment, and then you're going to write some predictions, okay? So this is what you're going to predict. Now, I told you seeds need sun, water, and soil. But what if they didn't have one of those things? What would happen? We're going to find out. So in your little greenhouse, in your little seed tray, you're going to give them everything that they need. That sun, that soil, and that water. So if you want to use that as your experiment of where you're giving them everything they need, then you only need 3 pots. But if you want to set it up like that, that's totally fine if you want to have all 4. So in this first one, I have a little happy face because we're going to give this seed, and you're going to do the same thing. Make the soil wet. You're going to make a little hole, take one of your flower seeds and put it in there and cover it up. And in this one, you're going to give it soil, you're going to give it water, and you're going to give it sun. So everything that it needs. In this next one, you are going to plant it just like you planted the first one, but then you're either going to cover it up or put it in a cabinet somewhere or in the basement. We're not going to give it any sun. You still have to water it, so don't forget about where you put it. So that's the other thing. You might want to put it in a little tray just so you don't get water everywhere. But this one is going to get no sun. So we're going to see what happens if a plant doesn't get sun. Then we're going to do the same thing for this one, plant it, but we're never going to water it. We're not going to give it any water. And we're going to see what happens if a seed doesn't get water. And now in this one, instead of soil, it's filled with sand. So what is going to happen if we plant a seed in sand? So that's what I want you to do. Set this all up, plant 4 seeds, same seeds, and then make predictions. What's going to happen to the seed that gets water, sun, soil? What's going to happen if it doesn't get sun? If it never gets watered? Or what's going to happen to a seed that tries to grow in sand? So you make the predictions, and then you're going to wait a couple weeks until you start seeing sprouts. You see your little seedlings coming through, and then let us know what happens. Which one grows the best? Does any of them not grow at all? What do they look like? Even send us picture updates. We'd love to see it. But all we need is just to see the picture that you set up the experiment, and then we're going to pick one of you lucky scientists to win that gift card. So this is just something fun and extra. I know we're all home right now, so it might be something fun to do. So let us know if we have some scientists out there who set up this experiment, and then we'll pick one lucky winner. Otherwise, once you have your seed tray set up, just make sure that you don't forget about it. It needs to be watered every day. It needs that sunshine every day. And then just start watching for your little seedlings to come up, to see little sprouts. Remember, they're all going to come at different times. So you need a little bit of patience just to give them some time to grow. It's a lot of work for a seed to get those roots out and get that little seedling out. So just take care of them as best you can. If you have any questions or any concerns, make sure you message us or call us or whatever you need to do, and we'll answer your questions for you. But otherwise, happy planting and good luck with your new little baby seedlings.